On today's video, I'm going to be removing a smog pump and its hoses that attach to it in my 1989 Lincoln Town Car. The first thing you want to do is remove the belt that goes over the AC compressor and the smog pump. I've already done that, but in order for you to do that, you will need to remove this bolt right here on the alternator, and also there's another bolt that's just under the alternator pulley that you'll also need to remove to loosen up this belt first. The reason why you have to loosen this belt first is because the belt that goes over the AC compressor is actually behind the other belt. So you have to remove that one first. To loosen up this belt, what you have to do is you got to loosen this idler pulley. In order to do that, you have to remove this bolt here, or loosen this bolt first. I believe it's a 15 millimeter. And then there's another bolt that fits behind the bracket on the other side, not this one, because this just loosens the pulley itself. But there's another one that's a 14 millimeter that actually fits on the other side of the bracket. And I was able to get it with just a 14 millimeter wrench. But you gotta loosen that, and then you can take a 1/2 inch drive right here on the idler pulley, and then you can just lift it up, and that'll loosen your belt. And then you can take your belt off. In my case, I'm going to leave the belt off because the AC compressor or the AC system doesn't really work well in my car anyway. But I'm also going to try and find a belt that, you know, will fit just the AC compressor without the smog pump. The only possible issue is that it may come into contact with this idler pulley. The next step you got to do is take off the smog pump, and on this car, to take it off, you have to first loosen the bolts off of the pulley itself. I just took an air ratchet to it, so I didn't have to worry about it spinning around while I was trying to take the bolts off. And the reason why you got to take the pulley off first is because this bolt is a long bolt, and you can't get past this pulley without taking it off first. So this bolt is a 14 millimeter. Once you get this off, this bolt's a 14 millimeter, and then there's a 14 millimeter bolt on the bottom side that I'll show you here in a minute. All right, we're under the car now. Next thing we're going to do is loosen up the hose that connects to the air pump. And then after that, we're going to loosen up this bolt right here. It's up to you whether you want to disconnect it right here, but I don't need this bracket for anything, so I'm going to pull it out up here. This is a 13 millimeter bolt. All right, we've disconnected a couple of hoses on this side. We got this one, and then we've got this one. Pulled it off on bits right here, and we now have this thing loosened up, so we should be able to pull it out now. And there it is. One thing I forgot to mention is this line that comes out of the top of the air pump it actually feeds into your cruise control module on the other end. Now, if you care about your cruise control, it may affect it by removing this line. So if you're worried about that, you may not want to do this whole modification. I went ahead and tested it without it, and I didn't see any difference in my cruise control. But if you want to remove this line, it feeds up under the AC compressor and then through the plenum out the back, and then it goes over to the cruise control module right here, and you just pull that out, and then you have to cap this off or else you'll get a vacuum leak. And here's one of the main reasons why I pulled this out. It was starting to get really noisy. I thought at first there was something going on inside my engine, but it turns out it was just the air pump. I think the bearings are going out on it, but listen here. You can see it's fairly noisy. The next thing we're going to do is remove all the hosing that attached to the air pump. That's this big piece right here, and we're going to go all the way back to this point right here. There's a hose clamp. The bolt is facing downward, so I'm going to use a stubby flathead screwdriver to loosen it up and pull it out. And then there's another one right here. This goes to the exhaust side, and we're going to remove this hose clamp right here. After you've loosened the hose clamp right here and the hose clamp right here, there's actually two other smaller hoses that fit on top of this whole assembly. There's one right here that we have to remove. Your hose may not look like this because I replaced this one a long time ago, but you want to remove that one. And then there's one on the bottom right here. And if you want to remove them from the other end, here's one of them right here, and here's another one going into, I don't know what these are, little actuators of some sort. And here's what the whole assembly looks like after you've removed it from the car. So the next thing we got to do is remove all the unnecessary crap that was left over, which is this, and this. And then we have to plug off the holes to the two remaining hoses. One of them going to the EGR, and then one of them going to the back of the plenum. And then after that, we have to plug off the hole to the exhaust. You can either cut it off at the exhaust and plug it up there. I'm just going to plug it up here. And then we have this one right here, which you can remove at the back of the heads. But due to the very limited working room in this car, it's even worse than the Mustangs. I'm just going to plug it up right here. To remove this whole section here, it's held on by two 11mm bolts. The heads to the bolts are under the wheel well. I have removed one of them already. After you've freed this piece up, you gotta remove this one. It's just held on with a couple of push pins, one on this side, one on the other side. And I use a trim tool to pull it up. The next thing we got to do is remove the connectors. There's two here and there's one right here. After you've removed the plugs, which you just lift up on this tab to pull it out, same with both of these. You just lift up on this tab and they'll pull right out. And the last thing you got to do before you can pull this out is remove the tube going to your EGR and remove the tube going into the back of the plenum. And then this whole section of stuff will pull right out. And there's what it looks like out of the car. Okay, so now that we have everything removed, we need to plug off the holes. There are a total of 5 of them on this car, if you include the cruise control module. I'm not sure that all of these cars had cruise control, so you can ignore that one if yours doesn't, but if it does, you'll have to cap it off. For these two right here, what I did was I took the old pipe that's on here and I went to Lowe's and bought a 1/2-inch copper pipe cap and stuck them in there. And I would definitely recommend pulling the rubber hose off first before putting this in here so you don't accidentally drop it down the pipe. And then after that, you just put it in here and tighten it down with a hose clamp and then put it back on. You can see I've already done one of them. And then the other vacuum lines that need capped off are right here at your EGR. I've used some vacuum line caps to cap that off. I bought this at Amazon and I used the smaller diameter ones. Basically the ones with the smallest hole on them, which I think are going to be the 532. And I put one right here, and we got to put one on the back of the plenum right here. And then if you have cruise control, you have to put one right here. And the size for that one is inner diameter 5/16. Okay, so after you get all the caps on, here's what it should look like. If you're going to use your own plug, I probably wouldn't use anything that would melt too easy on the exhaust side because it may get kind of hot. That's why I went with a metal plug. I've also taped these wires up. You can remove them if you want to, but I'm trying to keep my car as stock as possible, so if I ever want to return it to the way it was, I can. And you can see, I've got the caps on everything else. So the last thing we got to do is just start it up and see how it runs. See, it runs smooth. Runs just as good, if not better, without it. You can see I've also got a 3G alternator in here too. That was a modification I did a while back ago. And as you can see, there are no check engine lights on the car. Just the door. So, as for my final thoughts, should you do this to your town car? I would say it's worth it. On my car, I had an issue where I was driving 40 and I could feel it lurching back and forth. And I couldn't figure out what was going on with it. I didn't know if it was fuel related or what. But after I took out the air pump, the problem went away. So I kind of think this stuff, whenever it gets old, it doesn't work very well. And removing it really helps your engine performance. So that's how you remove a smog pump from a town car. And later on I may do a video where I actually remove this crossover pipe behind the plenum, or behind the heads. And I'll upload that too. But for now, see you guys later. Just for fun, we're going to weigh some of this smog equipment that we took off and see how much weight we saved on the car. So the pump itself weighs about 7 pounds. And the rest of it weighs a little over 5 pounds. So we saved almost 13 pounds removing all this stuff.